put that aside, right? People just think, oh no, we need jobs, 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 which is important, but if you can create jobs in a way that you're not polluting the environment at the same time, it's like a win-win solution for everybody. So what we at the Climate Change Group, what we're trying to do is help governments see that green jobs, for example, it is like actually the way of the future, right? Like there are many young people like us who are very concerned about environment. For example, maybe some of you like cycling, right? Like cycling to school. And then in Kathmandu at least, you see like how we don't have bike lanes, right? Like, and it's very dangerous and lots of traffic. So what can governments do anything to like encourage more cyclists on the road? Like help people, like, you know, encourage people to walk maybe, or like use cars or buy, like you provide incentives for like cars that are not that old, that don't like, you know, produce a lot of pollution. So it's all about how do you help governments see the benefit of being environmentally friendly and in the process create those kinds of jobs. So that's what I do at the Climate Change Group, and it's a very interesting piece of work. And I maybe a little bit of a personal story that might resonate with you guys is it's been like a long journey for me to come to this place. And as a high school student, I was very interested in science, and I remember one of my high school projects was on making like a water purification system for my high school. And I remember going to, you know, the Bagmati River, collecting water samples and bringing back to my school and making like a filtration system to see like, you know, what kind of filtration system is needed to get like pure water. So that was like my interest in high school. And when I went to college, I majored in chemistry, and I really liked science. And it was just, I just thought that science was a really good way to understand the world around me. But at the same time, I was still interested in environment as well. So I ended up doing like a chemistry and like an environmental studies, a double major. And then it's like, you know, coming from Nepal, I can understand also like, you know, you have parents who are like, you know, sometimes they tell you, oh, like study just science or something like that. And for me, it was like, I liked science, but also I liked environment as well, which environment is also informed by a lot of things in science as well. And then I went on to, I spent a year in Sweden, and that was a very interesting experience because I realized I'm also very interested in sustainable agriculture. For example, like, you know, in Nepal, it's a major, you know, an agriculture-dependent country, but then you have a lot of industrial farms that are using a lot of pesticides, right? And these pesticides are very harmful for your health. There are people with who give birth to like deformed babies because of like the pesticides in the soil. So I was very interested in like ways of agriculture where you can reduce pesticides. So during my year in Sweden, that was like my study in terms of how can you promote organic agriculture. And in the side, like I also volunteered in an organic farm at the same time. So what was interesting about that experience was like when you study science, like in college for me, like, you know, it's a kind of a, you know, science is rigorous, like, so it requires like mental discipline. Like compared to my other friends, like I really did not have a lot of time because, you know, you have classes in the morning, then you have lab in the afternoon, right? So very rigorous 4 years of undergrad. But what it helped me was in a way to be disciplined in trying to understand problems. So even though now I'm not like a scientist, it trained my mind to think in a certain way. So even when I was working in a farm as a volunteer, like I realized that it's the same curiosity, like, you know, what makes soil healthy, right? Like, can you do it without pesticides? What are natural ways of doing it? Like in Nepal, like long before, nobody used pesticides, right? Like it's only after a certain time pesticides started coming in, it depleted the soil. So science just gives you a kind of curiosity to understand the problem and like really be persistent at it. And it doesn't mean you have to be a doctor at the end of the day, like, you know? So after that, like I went to Nepal and I worked in Nepal for around 2 years. I worked on like 2 different topics. One was on waste management, organic waste management. I mean, we see like how people just throw things everywhere, right? So one of the projects I worked on was how can there be a system in which organic waste, you know that vegetable market, Kalimati vegetable market, right? Like, I went there for one of the projects, and I remember there would be a truck that had like this whole, you know, like the bag would be full of like wasted ends of like vegetables, and they would just go to the nearby river, I forgot the name, and they would just like dump it there. Like just dump it, right? And like for our project, we were trying to see that can we collect that kind of organic waste and turn it into compost and then sell it. So like the project was about how do you reduce like organic waste. So I did that for some time. It was very interesting, but then it was a very difficult project too, because waste is also, people mix waste, right? There's plastic, and then there's like vegetable waste mixed at the same time. So for me, I realized that working on waste means also you need to see how you can separate waste. So it's a big like problem that, you know, I mean, I still don't have the answers to, but I really think that it's something that needs to be dealt with. And that was more Kathmandu focused. The other project I did was on climate smart agriculture. This was more in like 2 rural villages in Nepal. And that was also to see how can farmers in Nepal look at more sustainable ways of doing farming. Are there like indigenous methods of farming that could help reduce their use of pesticides? So I did that for some time, and that was also very interesting to see, because like the way trade works between India and Nepal now, like it's very cheap to use pesticides. Like, you know, so they make it easy. So like it's almost like the incentives are against environmentally friendly practices. So what I now do at the bank is how to reverse that, how to make it easy to be environmentally friendly. And then after that, I go to grad school, right? In grad school, I focus on environmental management, like very focused on environment, and looking at a lot of environmental policies. And then what I've realized is even when you study environment, you need to be able to talk to different kinds of people. You need to be able to talk to somebody who's a scientist, because they know how to, you know, gather data. You need to know how to talk to somebody who's in business, because if business sector is not on board, then your policy is not going to work, right? So for me, having an interdisciplinary background with both science, some practical experience at work, helped me to be able to talk to different kinds of people. And then in the real world, that's what's necessary. If you want to do something successfully, you need to know how to talk to different types of people to, you know, come to a common goal, a common solution. So that's where I'm at now. It's been 2 years. I've been working with